Acts 8:1-3. Paul was in complete agreement with killing of Stephen. Now some say Saul. This is the same guy, Saul, Paul. And a great wave of persecution of the believers began that day, sweeping over the church in Jerusalem and over everyone except the apostles. Everyone except the apostles fled into Judea and Samaria. Now it's important to note Paul did not start this persecution. It was already started when Christ died, but he became a great hand in causing it. He would go out, find Christians, and bring them in to be persecuted. He was completely, we see the story about he get blinded. He was blinded by what he thought was truth. And then when Jesus showed him the light, he knew what was truth. But until then, he was following after what he thought was right. And oftentimes the people of the world are following after what they see as right. But they need to be revealed what is the actual truth. And oftentimes it's because they don't see the truth, they don't know the truth, that they follow after what they're doing. Paul thought he was doing a great service for God by bringing these blasphemers, as he thought they were, to be killed and taken out. But he would later know that what they were speaking and Christ who they were proclaiming was what is true. And he dedicated the same, even more so, I believe, an effort to Christ afterwards. But so the church is separating at this point. We see how it's building up through the first 7 chapters, how it's growing day by day, and now it's spreading out to the world. Now there's a point in this, because it was gathering up just in Jerusalem, it helped spread the gospel. They're moving about, running from place to place. The gospel's going with them. So it ain't something that they're just subjecting. The fact is, they kept having to run and be persecuted because they kept sharing the message of Christ. So this helped in part bring about the Great Commission being spread. The apostles stayed here. It doesn't necessarily say it, but they were probably under God's protection, because most likely if these Jewish leaders want to go after anybody, put them into a movement, just like they went after Christ, they would have went after these apostles. So I think there was God protecting them, keeping them from this for a time, so that wouldn't happen. Because I also highly doubt that Peter and all these other apostles were hiding somewhere rather than spreading the gospel, because we see stories of how that wasn't happening. So the gospel is being spread to Judea and Samaria, and later they'd even move even further. There's also people actually already started going out doing mission work. We see later in this chapter how Philip goes, but there was others that went out beforehand, starting to spread the gospel as Christ commanded. So we see it coming about here. And as Christians, we're told by Christ that the world hated him, so they're going to hate us in return. And this is what's happening to the disciples, the followers of Christ here. They're being hated because Christ was hated. They're simply being hated because they're following after Christ. And the Jewish leaders at this time are wanting to do away with this, so they're trying to do away with it as quick as possible, and that's just kill everybody. But some godly Jews came and with great sorrow buried Stephen. So Stephen just died. At this point, everybody's spreading out after this because of the big uproar of the Jews trying to get rid of him immediately. But there's these group of people. Now, and most likely these are Jewish converts. Which most of the Christians at this point in time were Jewish, because Paul hadn't spread the gospel to the Gentiles, even though it may have been brought out. Most of them were being converted to. Most of the area that they were going in were Roman citizens that were Jewish anyway, and they were converted from that to Christianity. So most likely these were Jewish Christians burying Stephen, because for somebody not associated, not anything to do with what Stephen represented, they would have just left him. Also, there's Jewish laws about how to handle the dead. So for them to leave him showed their disdain for Christianity even more, because they were disobeying their own laws in many forms to abolish this. Paul was like a wild man, going everywhere to devastate the believers, even entering private homes and dragging out men and women alike and jailing them. Now, to make it most similar today, I say it may have been worse, but the thing most characteristic today is the ISIS movement, going in areas and just bringing out and slaughtering Christians multiple at a time. But Paul just kept doing this. We see how we hear the stories, but they ain't like, I think Paul would have did more. For one man to do all Paul did in persecution, ISIS is more numbers. So Paul really seeked out to do a lot of harm. He was trying to single-handedly do with it. And the Christian church has had persecution over the years, but I don't think anybody tried to bring the downfall as much as Saul did to the Christian church. And this, we'll cover it in the next few chapters, but just the fact that Jesus can change somebody who is bringing downfall and use him to bring about the church and Christ to places where it would have been reached otherwise is just a testament to how great God truly is.